What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 9 NFL Main Slate Breakdown here on Sharp Sports Network. I am your host, Joe Bewer, and I'm going to be breaking down this massive 10-game main slate here on Sunday, Week 9, so we got a lot of edge to be had in this slate breakdown. So before I get into that, I want to go ahead and just reiterate that last night, the showdown slate did not go as planned. Tevin Coleman at captain absolutely got destroyed. It just didn't turn out the way that we planned, but we just want to stay transparent and move on to this NFL main slate here where I think we're going to have a lot of success. Got a lot of good options here on this main slate, so I'm really excited to jump into this. So let's jump into this. First things first, I want to jump over to our website here on Sharp Sports Network just to kind of plug this apparel real quick, where we do have a sick amount of apparel designs here where you can go ahead and check one out, snag one, and support us over here at Sharp Sports Network. Now, next, I do want to mention that we are partnered with Fantasy Draft. If you are watching this video right now and you are not a member of Sharp Sports Network, here is your opportunity to become a member for free for NFL content over here on Sharp Sports Network. You will be getting my private cheat sheets as well as private roster construction videos and private streams. All you have to do is sign up for an account on Fantasy Draft using the referral code SHARPSPORTS with no spaces, and then deposit the minimum amount of $10. Send us a screenshot on our Twitter, and we will go ahead and get you set up with access. Now, let's jump into this main slate here. I know on the first look video when I talked about a few plays that I liked, and I'm still on a lot of those plays, so I really want to dive into that here. Kind of go through my initial thoughts and where I want to go here as far as each position. So for quarterbacks, Russell Wilson at 7,100 still makes a lot of sense in cash games. They're going to have to abandon the run. Chris Carson is not going to be able to get through the number one rush defense in the league, who held Christian McCaffrey to 7.3 fantasy points in week 2 of the season. Christian McCaffrey has since not had a game under 20 fantasy points, and the only team to hold him under 20 was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're going to have to abandon the rush a lot and really rely heavily on that pass game with players like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So, although Russell Wilson makes a lot of sense in cash games, he is very expensive, which makes me want to pivot down here still to Matt Stafford at 6.8K. I think Stafford makes a lot of sense. He has to really rely on the pass without Kerryon Johnson in the lineup anymore, which makes for incredible DFS performances from him. So in the past 2 weeks, averaging almost over 30 attempts in both weeks, 32, 45, 32, 34. These are the attempts numbers that we want to see high up there. 300 passing yards, 2 straight weeks, over 3 touchdowns, 2 straight weeks. So this is exactly where I want to pay for. Somebody like Matt Stafford here at 6.8K makes a lot of sense for cash games here. Now, as far as GPPs, what I want to go over is 2 main spots that I really want to target here. Derek Carr on the flip side of this Detroit game makes a lot of sense. All you really need is 20 fantasy points at 5.5K to really reach value. The one thing that we have to understand here is that DraftKings has upped the prices of pretty much everybody since last week. So making lineups here and really getting a balanced lineup is going to be a tough challenge here. So we're going to have to go with a little bit of stars and scrubs strategy, but I think we can pull it off here. So in GPPs, Derek Carr makes a lot of sense from a fantasy standpoint and a fantasy points per minute standpoint. And the only other person that I would mention in GPP is Jameis Winston. On the other side of that game, they're going to have to really rely on players like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to get down the field. The passing defense for the Seahawks is not too good this season, so I really think that Jameis Winston and Derek Carr make good GPP plays. But for cash games, Matt Stafford and Russell Wilson are my 2 options. Moving on to running back, for me, the top play that has to be locked into everyone lineups here is Dalvin Cook, facing off against the worst run defense in the league in the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Dalvin Cook is going to really just own this entire game. Now, the only contingency here is if Patrick Mahomes plays, which he's doubtful right now. If he plays, I don't like Dalvin Cook because I feel like they're going to abandon the run to pass in this game because they will effectively be down most of the game. But in the event that Matt Moore starts, I think that they really just try and bully the run again, get up and just continue running with Dalvin Cook, which makes his 9,500 price tag not as bad as a lot of people are making it seem. So for me, Dalvin Cook, as of now, in what it seems like with Patrick Mahomes being questionable or being doubtful, makes a lot of sense for me to play Dalvin Cook. Now, 2 more cash plays for me as far as running backs are concerned. Josh Jacobs is one of them. He's questionable right now, but I assume that he wants to play. The Raiders have really made it very clear that they want to get the ball into Josh Jacobs' hands as many times as they can. Past 2 out of the past 3 games, over 20 touches. I think that Josh Jacobs against Oakland here, who really doesn't stack up well against the run defense, allowing 130 yards per game and almost 26 points per game. Josh Jacobs has a dream matchup here against Detroit. I really want a lot of exposure to this game here. So if Josh Jacobs is 100% ready to go, I think he's a shoe-in for a very big workload. So I really like Josh Jacobs here today. Now, last person that I really think is worth targeting is going to be Jalen Samuels. Seems like James Conner and Benny Snell are not going to be good to go after not practicing again today. So I think Jalen Samuels is in for a week here, like week 4 in Cincinnati. It was kind of the same thing. I think Jalen Samuels is going to be in for a lot of work. This game is projected to be one of the more lower scoring games with a very heavy emphasis on the run game for Pittsburgh, as they were with James Conner last week. Mason Rudolph didn't seem like himself the first full half, and James Conner got a lot of run, and he absolutely exploded. So I think that Jalen Samuels provides a very, very good amount of value that you're really going to need to kind of pay up for some of these studs here in the wide receiver position, which we're going to have to pay up for somebody. And my favorite play is Kenny Golladay of the day. I think you have to pair with Matthew Stafford, somebody like Kenny Golladay. 7.7K is a hefty price tag, but if we just look at the targets, 8. He had a dud against Minnesota, but 9 and 9. He's been blowing up. Over 20 fantasy points in 3 out of the 4 past games, even going back to earlier this season as well. And he gets a soft matchup here against the 30th ranked passing defense in the league against Oakland, 285 passing yards, and they allow almost 28 points per game. Oakland also allows the most fantasy points to the quarterback position. I think Kenny Golladay is going to have his way today. I think that they're going to have Marvin Jones is getting reduced targets due to Danny Amendola playing around 70% of the snaps. So I think Kenny Golladay is actually one of the safer wide receiver plays on this slate. Now, as far as the other wide receivers go, Tyler Lockett makes a lot of sense too if you pivot off of Golladay. I think he's going to get increased run here as well. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans make great GPP plays. But we're going to have to look down here in this 4K range to kind of see who we can really, pin to get some more run, and that would be Mike Williams for me. I think Mike Williams makes a lot of sense here in this matchup. He's got double-digit targets in 2 out of the past 4 games, going up against a Green Bay secondary who gives up a decent amount of yardage, and I think Phillip Rivers is really going to have to unleash here, being a little behind in this game as they're projected to be. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to control the pace of the game. I think Mike Williams makes a lot of sense in this game particularly. The only other player that I really like here is Jarvis Landry. I think that Will Harris is going to be all over Odell Beckham Jr., leaving a lot of the targets here to go to Jarvis Landry like it did last week in New England. He had 10 targets. He's had over a 20-yard pass in all of the past 4 games. So I like Jarvis Landry as well. But I think for me, one of the best plays for me today is Danny Amendola, like we were talking about earlier. He's just been getting an increased amount of targets over the past 2 games, just really proving that his slot receiving game is just next level. So I think Danny Amendola makes a lot of sense as well. And then lastly, the only other person I would talk about in this lower range is Curtis Samuel, who's had an uptick in targets over the past few games. Kyle Allen really wants to go and make Curtis Samuel, a focal point of this offense. Cam Newton has been ruled out, so I expect Curtis Samuel to get the same amount of targets against a terrible Tennessee secondary who's allowing 239 yards per game with 17 points per game. I expect that Curtis Samuel is going to have a blow-up game at some point in the future, and I think it could be this game. So, just to wrap up, Galladay's the safest place for me. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf makes a lot of sense for cash games if you have Russell Wilson. GPPs will go with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And then some other players down here like Danny Amendola, Mike Williams, and Jarvis Landry. Curtis Samuel. Those are probably going to be the 4 value receivers of the day. Don't really like anybody down here too much. I don't really see any of the value. So for me, in order to get up to some of these guys like Dalvin Cook, you're really going to have to, plug in some of these guys here in the 4 to 5K range. Now for tight end, this is where I'm very interested in 2 tight ends and 2 tight ends only. Darren Waller has to be the top tight end of the week. His target share has been the most consistent out of any tight end this entire year, and I think it's going to continue. They're not good at defending tight end spot over here on the Lions. They're the 32nd ranked passing defense, allowing 290 yards per game. They're just not good at all. They allow 420 total yards per game, which makes me love Darren Waller in this matchup. I want as many Oakland players and as many Detroit players in this game that I can get. So if Josh Jacobs plays, like I said, he becomes an elite value play that we really have to look at on this slate. The only other tight end that I think that has a lot of upside is going to be Dallas Goedert over here. Going up against Chicago, I think that they've been running a lot of 2 tight end sets, which really limits Zach Ertz's upside. And Dallas Goedert has seen an uptick in targets over the past 3 games and has actually gotten to score 2 out of the past 4 games, 2 games in a row, actually. I think Dallas Goedert has more upside here than a very cheap Zach Ertz. So if you're looking to pay down for tight end and not pay the price tag of Darren Waller, which is a little expensive, Dallas Goedert would be the best option for me. But Darren Waller makes sense just because of the cash game upside. Now, before we go into flex positions and the rest of the lineup build, I really think that this is a very important part here to really talk about defenses. And for me, I really think punting with the Redskins defense makes a lot of sense. Not only have they been pretty much around 10 points, they're playing Buffalo, and the over-under is at like 38. This is projected to be a low-scoring game. Josh Allen has not been that dialed in from behind the gun recently. He hasn't really scored too many points. And even when they were allowing 19 points, 16 points, they're still getting a ton of sacks. They're still pressuring the quarterback a fair amount. I think 6 to 8 points here at 1,800, just all it does is just shoot up the upside that you can really have. So for me, I think that this is a very, very vital play here to kind of punt the defense just so you can make sure that you get everybody in that you want. So for me, if I did have the option, I would have to go with Josh Jacobs at 6.5K, leaving you 3.7K, which is going to put you in a tough spot here with the rest of this lineup build. But there's plenty of options here. We could drop people, but I think Anthony Miller makes a lot of sense here. It seems like Trubisky has really been trying to spread the ball out between Allen Robinson, Gabriel, and Anthony Miller. I think you can really he's reaching value in 3 out of the past 4 games. Trubisky's getting him the ball. He's going up against a Philadelphia Eagles secondary that's just really not stout at all. They've allowed the Dallas Cowboys to run all over them and such. So I think that plays like Anthony Miller can really make or break a lineup. Somebody like that just really provides upside. Same with Taylor Gabriel. But with that being said, on DraftKings, these are my favorite plays. I think this makes a lot of sense because all of these plays are universal across all sites. I think if you're looking here, Dalvin Cook makes a lot of sense. As this build, you have 5.3K left per player, and I would obviously remove Tyler Lockett, and I think that you can really pencil in some other players here that are just super underpriced. DK Metcalf got his price upped, but Tyrell Williams here at 6.3K, who's going to really see an extensive run with Derek Carr behind the ball. I think that Tyrell Williams, who's caught a touchdown in each of the past 6 games, makes a lot of sense. And then Danny Amendola at 6K and Marvin Jones at 5.7K make a ton of sense just to kind of overflow that Detroit stack, who's going to have their way with a secondary on Oakland who just cannot stop the pass defense, or they just can't stop the pass at all. So for me, this is the exact same build over on DraftKings. I think you go the exact same way. Running backs over here on FanDuel, Josh Jacobs is priced up a little high, and he's priced more than Le'Veon Bell, which makes me not like Josh Jacobs over here on FanDuel. Instead, I still think Jalen Samuels at 5K makes the most sense and gives you your upside is not capped at all over here on FanDuel. You can get a lot of low-tier players in. You can get Curtis Samuel at 5.6K, Mike Williams at 5.7K. You'll be able to pay up for exactly who you want. And then not to mention going over here, you can play the Redskins defense as well at 3K. Once you play them at 3K, you are left with roughly 7K to complete the rest of your lineup, which then allows you to get exactly who you want in. You can get Metcalf, you can get this, you're left with a flex spot of 7.7K. You can get somebody like Tyreek Hill, you can get Aaron Jones, who's a solid play, and you can get Josh Jacobs. FanDuel, it's a lot easier to create lineups this week. I think this makes a lot of sense for somebody like this to be able to get 3 running backs. Running back's going to be the most important position this week, so I really want to put emphasis on getting Dalvin Cook, Jalen Samuels, and Josh Jacobs into your lineup if Jacobs is healthy. Aaron Jones is a pivot off Jacobs if he's not healthy. Over on Fantasy Draft, it's the same thing. Matthew Stafford is severely underpriced. Dalvin Cook is priced appropriately, and Josh Jacobs is priced very poorly. I will put him in flex so we can go ahead and get Jalen Samuels, who is priced abysmally at 7.8K. Kenny Golladay is the highest priced player over here on DraftKings, which is perfectly acceptable in my opinion. Danny Amendola, same thing. Mike Williams at 9.1K. All of these guys make the most sense. Darren Waller should be in everyone's lineup. In cash games, you have to play Darren Waller. Over here on Fantasy Draft, getting players in is so easy. Flex, you can play Josh Jacobs. It's that easy. You can play everybody that you want to play over here on these sites and still have plenty of salary cap left. I think this needs to be how the lineup looks for a lot of cash game builds. It's going to be tough. We're going to have to find some value in receivers like Anthony Miller. We're going to have to find some other values like Curtis Samuel. But I think this is the way it has to look. I think Matthew Stafford and Golladay got the best pairing. Dalvin Cook is in a dream matchup. So is Jalen Samuels with value. Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller are going to feast on the Detroit secondary. And I think this is definitely the way to go. So with that being said, I hope that everybody has had some success recently. The showdown obviously didn't go the exact way that we wanted to yesterday, but this public video will be out today. If you have not signed up for this fantasy draft promo, please do that. You will get access to the private roster construction where I build lineups for cash and GPP on all sites that will release tomorrow. So make sure that you sign up today so you can take full advantage of that. With that being said, good luck to everybody. I will be live on Sunday morning publicly around 10 Central Time. And then I will also be live for the showdown that night as well. So stay tuned for that. We're going to crush this main slate. There's a ton of edge to be had, and there will be more edge to be had when the other injury news hits probably tomorrow. So that'll be for the private members when the cheat sheet comes out. So stay tuned for that. Good luck to everybody. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and we will see you on Sunday for a private live stream. Peace.